There's
Okay.
3 people in this room for you
Yeah.
to be scared of.
The camera cuts off right where you're sitting and right next to Daniel, so you're not in camera if you get outside of this range, okay? And it should be going.
So,
Yep. Names for who we, yeah, right now. Daniel, Sophia. Shaden, right?
Shade.
Yeah. You're missing an N on your face.
Am I?
That's what I thought.
Shade.
Shade. Daryl, Samara, Reagan.
okay.
Yeah. We're good. We're right on time. Y'all did great. We're not waiting for anybody else from your teams? 3 and 3? Okay. All right.
Okay, we have, what is it, 2 minutes of prep time. Y'all can use however you want, or you can go ahead and get started. We're going to start time.
Yeah, let me get my phone out. I don't have my phone because my phone's in the other room. It's my turn.
So take the time to wrap it.
It's faster.
Do you want to set this long?
I want it to be in. Okay, we ready? Give me a nod. Okay, so affirmative, 5 minutes. Make sure you're standing up and go.
We don't even know if that's on.
It's not.
Talk loud.
Hello.
You got it.
Hello, my name is Daryl McNeely. We are the affirmative side of the Securing Our Schools Act of 2022. Our team will prove that this bill is necessary and needs to be passed. We will provide the benefits and how this act will make teens and younger children feel safe and free of worry while receiving their education. The purpose of the Securing Our Schools Act is to allow certain funds to be provided in response to COVID-19 to be made available for school security measures and for other purposes. Before going any further, let us define the definition of secure. The term secure means to be free from or not exposed to harm. Basically safe and kept out of dangerous spaces and made feel safe in a way. So in this year alone, there have been 257 school shootings, surpassing 2021's record of 250. This can have a huge toll on the students. The more they hear or experience these types of situations, mental health plays a vital role in this, and it's not utilized enough in schools. What is mental health? Mental health is our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. This influences our actions and how we choose to maneuver throughout our day-to-day living. How does this apply to the situation, you may ask? Mental health plays a huge role in youth, especially dealing with school. These are kids and teens who tend to go to school dealing with things outside at home, and we have no clue. This is important because some of those same children are the ones who are coming into schools with weapons or are coming and taking their issues or anger out on the whole school by committing murders. According to the American Psychological Association, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services has determined that 1 in 5 U.S. children ages 3 to 17 has a mental, emotional, behavioral, or developmental disorder. Why is this important? There are many children who battle things in school and at home. Some have to carry that weight every day, even in school. 15.8% of children report suffering from a major depression episode in the past year. Our schools do not utilize counselors and mental health guidance enough. This act is helping to improve this issue. Ted Cruz is offering $10 billion to hire 15,000 mental health professionals for middle and high schools. This is a great way to increase the presence of guidance counselors for students who are battling many mental problems and having to go through them on their own. Students also may fear their own safety as they navigate the schools. Cruz is also preparing to put $2.56 billion for physical security improvements on school campuses. This includes proper training for employees and improvements on school safety precautions as well. Oftentimes, there are teachers who are not as well equipped to handle situations of this matter. This is also included in the act that Cruz is offering. This is an opportunity for teachers to be prepared and taught how to properly handle these situations, because at the end of the day, the children and parents have to be able to trust the teachers and other staff at the schools with their children. With all of the shootings and threats that have been taking place, does it look like the staff is being well equipped? Let's be honest. This act is an all-around improvement for every school. It's ensuring the safety of children, not only physically, but mentally as well, as it will give students a safer space to speak and have time with professionals who they need to help them succeed and deal with what they may be battling. The ultimate goal is for children to be able to be safe and free of worry as they continue on their educational journey. There have been too many deaths and injuries due to the lack of security and protection in schools, and it must be brought to an end.
Thank you. Okay, negative construct. 5 minutes whenever you stand up.
Okay. Ready. Hello, my name is Sophia. I will be negating the proposed act, the Securing the Schools Act of 2022. Police presence at school is detrimental to students, and the Securing the Schools Act does go in the opposite direction of protecting them. The Securing the Schools Act of 2022 seeks direct unused COVID relief money towards school security. Counselors increase training and also fortify school buildings with metal detectors, panic buttons. So, should we implement the Securing the Schools Act of 2022? Today, the negative team will prove to you why this bill is more harmful than it is beneficial. The framework of today's debate is opportunity costs. Determining which will stop school shootings will be the resolution. Securing the Schools Act of 2022 will use $15 billion for doubling the number of police in schools, training them specifically for schools, $10 billion to hire more counselors in schools, and $2.5 billion to fortify schools. Fortify means installing panic buttons which call for help and do not turn the room into a panic room. It also means installing metal detectors, presumably bulletproof glass, for the person who admits students into the building. Counseling has its drawbacks because school, state, or staff does not mean third-party counseling with patient or parent-patient confidentiality. So, policing our schools does not have any evidence that it makes schools safer. According to the Texas School Discipline Lab, research shows that the regular presence of police officers in schools increase the likelihood that young people will be charged with crimes, including minor offenses, even when controlling for factors like school crime and disorder. Wouldn't being arrested affect someone's mental health negatively? The examples of police violently subduing students since 5 years old may come to mind, as well as the fact that minority children and disabled children have increased arrests from ages 5 to 8 years old. Funding school safety has never been sufficient or a priority. Why now? More funding means more counseling. Will this actually help? Schools already have counselors who do not statistically stop school shootings. Gun violence is a leading cause of premature death in the United States. And the Center of Disease Control Prevention from 2018 reported that an average of 7 children and teens are killed with guns in the United States every day. So, more shootings were committed by non-students, so how will a counselor prevent this? Only half of shooters have any connection to the schools that they were targeting. Also, according to them, we found no empirical research from 2009 to 2019 that directly examined the link between school discipline and school shootings, meaning that more police will not deter shootings. Counselors will become more untrustworthy and will not provide ways for a shooter to feel like they can turn around. The type of individual who will actually consider shootings people would never confide in a counselor, especially when they can have him locked up. Free counseling needs to be in a place outside of school where no one feels like, and everyone will know if they are seeking help. So, elementary schools are the #1 target of school shooters. If they provide counselors in elementary schools, and the shooter is a grown man will not have the resources of a counselor in an elementary school. There are examples of counselors or police monitoring social media, but there is no real way this would stop most forms of bullying, just public cyberbullying. They would also need an SRO and every text message exchange to do that. In addition, the study found that school resource officers appeared to protect students from a non-trivial number of physical attacks within fights within schools, which would have a long-term academic and psychological benefits for students. But schools resource officers also report more suspensions, expulsions, police referrals, and student arrests. This is impacting mental health. If mental health is impacted in this way, counselors are not going to be helping. So, according to this article, the counselor has to be someone that the individual trusts, but also can talk to on a human level. about their problems because the possible shooter does not feel like there is something wrong with them. The shooter is always right, so they're never going to seek out help. School shooters do not think they are wrong, so why would they go to a counselor? They think they are the victim, and these attackers generally had an inflated sense of self, believing that they were superior to others. That's from the Secret Service. Not their victims, because there's no justice. This is the only thing they can do. Society's bad, and I'm right, and I'm the hero. This is how they think. So, neither the Constitution nor state or law impose general duty upon police officers. Okay.
Thank you. Okay. Okay. So we have our first crossfire for 2 minutes. Does anybody want to take any prep time right now? Okay, let me know when you're done. I'm starting the clock on that prep time. We get 2 minutes for the whole debate. Each side. If one takes it, the other has to. 30 seconds elapsed.
Ready.
We're ready? All right, stand up. All right, this is for 2 minutes. Ready, set, and go.
You made a statement on how school shooters are for the counselors to deal with, or that's for lawmakers to deal with, that's for police enforcement to deal with. If there's no law enforcement involved, how can the law deal with it? How can the police deal with the situation that they're not present at?
So, police only stop a quarter of the shootings that happen. So this means like 3/4 of shootings are going to happen. So police presence actually means an increase of police casualties. And that's according to Hamline University. There's a 75% area where casualties are increasing. And if the counselors, can you repeat the question? You said that
So
if police
basically,
presence aren't there.
you elaborated on, I might have said it. You elaborate on the situation saying that when school shooters are present, it's on the counselor to deal with. But it shouldn't be on the counselor to deal with. They're not law enforcement. The plan of this act is to add law enforcement to get rid of these types of deals to where counselors have to deal with this situation. The role of a counselor is to deal with the students who are dealing with these types of matters. They're there to help the students. I get that they're protecting students if there's absence of law enforcement, but with this plan that's here, if you're adding law enforcement, that's a fund towards them, that's funding towards safety of the school. So this will help the counselors stay out of this type of situation, and it'll put the people who are trained for these types of situations in the front of the school.
So the counselors are for the potential school shooters. The school shooters are not going to be utilizing the counselors. And law enforcement has proven to increase casualties when there is a police presence during the shooting.
But what's the casualty rate when there's no police present at the school? Let's go there. Let's examine if there's protection, if there's no protection. Let's be honest.
Very good.
Okay.
Okay. And so now we are on to affirmative rebuttal. 5 minutes. And we'll start when you start talking.
Okay, so, alright, so the negative side mentioned that there would be no patient confidentiality between the counselors and the students, and I find this a bit of an issue because elementary students should not have patient confidentiality because, again, they are minors and they could be putting themselves in danger, and counselors always make sure to explain that to the students before they engage in any of their services. Along with that, if counselors were not as overwhelmed and underpaid and they had more resources, students would actually be able to go to them more comfortably. But as we know, mental health, there's a huge stigma around it in the United States. And along with that, I'd like to bring up the fact that although this act is not ideal, it is common ground. It is the closest that we will get to gun control from both sides agreeing somewhat. And you guys mentioned why now, and honestly, enough is enough. Especially this past year, we've had more shootings than ever, and police presence is not necessarily a bad thing in schools, especially since for the most part students are not going to be in the hallways for the majority of school. Probably during their passing time, for the most part, they're going to be in classrooms learning or outside playing, so they will not be seeing police officers as often as many people believe that they would. And I believe exposing children to police officers positively in the beginning of their youth can actually help the way they see them later on in life, because as we know, police officers have received a lot of backlash over the years due to things such as systematic racism and the way that they treat students of color. And not passing this bill would be an insult to the victims and the families of the school shootings. As Ted Cruz said, if another lunatic attacks a school and there is not a police officer at the front door to stop it, remember right now. Remember this moment when Democrats said, no, we will not protect our kids. As I said before, this bill is not ideal, but it's the best compromise that has been brought to the table as of late. Because before this, there have honestly been no ideas or any bills that have been somewhat attainable that have been brought up when it comes to school shooting. Most people just want to eradicate guns and the Second Amendment completely, which, as we know, the reason the Second Amendment is here is because Americans believe that they need to protect themselves. And I believe instead of criticizing and complaining that this isn't a gun control bill, shouldn't we be happy that at least someone has thought of our children and their safety?
Thank you. Okay. Negative rebuttal, 5 minutes.
Securing our schools to them meant just just securing, keeping the children safe. But according to the bill, it also means a single point of entry, which is extremely dangerous, and a shooter could easily adapt to that. And mental health is negatively impacted by police presence, which will undermine any effort made by counselors. My opponent said that the school environment is unsafe, but police also make an statistically unsafe environment. There was a recent accidental firing by a police officer, according to Education Week, where a student was injured. And the counseling, our opponents argue that this bill is a genuine effort to make immediate action. But if this was a genuine effort, then this bill would only be about counselors and giving money to school, because this bill also only goes into effect if students or teachers agree to not teach about critical race theory and give any abortion resources. There were 300 police at Uvalde, and no one is satisfied with the good guy with the gun argument anymore. And as my opponents mentioned, Ted Cruz, the context of the bill is that recently there was an effort to increase or cut through the gun show loophole, but this bill, instead of just providing unused COVID money, instead of just using the unused COVID money for police or for just giving it to schools, they want to meet terrorists at their level, and they want to escalate, and they will adapt to that, and we should be bringing them down instead of us up. So it is not the only attempt. It is a bad faith argument to say that this is the only attempt that and a bipartisan one at that, because 90% of people agree in background checks. According to a study by Citizens for Juvenile Justice, police presence is a potent predictor of heightened emotional distress and post-traumatic stress symptoms in youth, which undermines any progress made by counselors. And to reiterate the Hamline University statistic, there are more people. It is the #1 predictor of more victims whenever a police officer is present at a school, because 72% of all shooters are either suicidal or have tried to take their own life at one point. So the theory is that they, whenever they see a police officer at a school, they plan around that, and they are more. It becomes an incentive to take out as many with you. And to reiterate my side's point about police only stopping 1/4 of shootings, we know that at this, whenever an automatic weapon is present, are police really saving more lives at this point? Because most of the time, it's a matter of time before they leave or take their own life. So the police is getting there before an inevitable happens. And in the case of Robb Elementary, we all saw how they just waited outside and nothing happened. All right.
Thank you. Okay, we have 2 minutes for Crossfire. Would we like to use any more prep time? We have 1 minute and 15 left on prep time. Okay, prep time starting now. Ready? All right. And Crossfire begins now.
Okay, so you guys mentioned the critical race theory, and I just have one question for you guys. Where in the bill does it actually mention critical race theory?
So in the bill, this is a federal bill, so it would affect schools outside of just Texas. So
That's not my question.
I couldn't find it on this, but
Then I'd like to ask, where was your research based on? Because if we do a quick Google search, we can actually see the most recent article with Ted Cruz and critical race theory is from earlier this year, specifically March. And even then, he was criticizing the judge about that. But if you continue to search and research, there is not really any articles or anything that mentions Ted Cruz talking directly about the critical race theory going hand in hand with this school act.
I have a question. Do you think getting arrested would be bad for your mental health?
Are you asking me just
In general?
Just in
for the
general?
average person?
For the average person? Well, getting arrested, that experience actually depends on a lot of things, depending on your race. So as Black women, it would be extremely traumatizing because we have seen in the media how the police treats Black people and people of color. But as for someone who might be of a different race or even socioeconomic standing, it wouldn't be as traumatizing. I risk getting thrown on the ground or even killed.
So a lot of, even at the age of 5 to 9, there are children and disproportionately black children.
Okay. Thank you. Very good, guys. Okay, now we're on to 5 minutes for third speaker's affirmative summary. Whenever you're ready, I will start.
Okay, so a lot of the points that have been brought up so far is that putting mental health resources in schools would not be beneficial to students in the first place, but counselors today are inadequately staffed. It's an average of about 1 counselor per every 500 students in a school, so that is quite a bit for one person to take on. So putting more mental health professionals in schools would actually increase the quality of the help that's being given to students. But counselors are not also meant to be put in place as a preventative measure, but also as a measure of traumatic events that have already happened in these schools. And like you said, the inevitable is going to happen, and those counselors are there to catch the fallout. In a Psychology Today article, it is actually talking about the students that were involved in a school shooting whose close friends died, being diagnosed or suffering from survivor's guilt and being diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. And it talks about another student who actually was suffering from survivor's guilt as well, who ended up killing himself because the mental health professionals that are put in schools are not adequately staffed to deal with all of the things that are happening. Also, you had mentioned earlier that if all of the things you had mentioned, like police presence in school and things like that, are negative impacting on mental health, then why is it not beneficial to have a mental health professional in school? Why are counselors not beneficial to have in schools? Yes, and then as for law enforcement in schools, you talked about how it took police officers a certain amount of time to get to a school after an event had occurred. But if law enforcement officers are placed in schools, then they will have the proper equipment and training and ability to be there in a faster amount of time, so they're not having to deal with potential hostage situations, or they're able to get ahead of the problem before it escalates very quickly. And you had also mentioned that in addition to critical race theory, schools cannot provide abortion services, but according to Section 399Z-1 of the Health Service Act, funds awarded for a grant under the section about school-based health centers may not be used to provide abortions. So that's kind of out of the question because schools aren't allowed to do it anyways, because it's under this act and it's under the Every Student Succeeds Act as well. So, kind of in a summary, basically everything that you're saying is not going to help is actually proven to help more, because you're able to get ahead of problems, but you're also able to catch the fallout of what may inevitably happen, because there's only so much that everybody can do. But this bill is a way to try and put as much resources as possible into protecting students and teachers as well, because this bill will not only protect students, but it will adequately train teachers and police officers on how to work in schools, and mental health professionals on how to work in schools with students as well. So it's not something that, the reason that there's a negative connotation around police officers is because of the outside media. In schools all around Texas, schools are doing everything that they can to make sure that students know that the police officers that are maybe already in schools are there to keep them safe, are there to support them, are there to be there for them, not there as a threat to their students.
Thank you. Okay, and we have summary for negative. 5 minutes, would you stand up?
So I would like to clear up one thing that was said during the crossfire earlier. There is a specific section of the bill in section 5 that says specifically that schools will not be able to teach critical race theory or include critical race theory in any school programs, as well as not being allowed to advocate for abortion or abortion services in any form. Now that that's out, I would like to, as my job is, summarize the arguments that have been made before and clear up other arguments that have been made by our friends over the affirmative side. Now, it is true, counselors are a good help for the children of our schools. This argument isn't about not adding more counselors, obviously. But counselors may actually be more effective at stopping shooters than SROs. It has been shown in the past that statistically, armed SROs have not been the ones stopping school shootings. It has actually been counselors. In fact, in the infamous Parkland shooting, an SRO actually fled the scene during the incident. So let's go over the actual effectiveness of these multiple thousands of SROs that are coming into our schools via this bill. Now, I would like to address that on the subject of mental health. Yes, counselors being added in is a good thing, but do we really think that extra men with guns are good pillars of mental health protection for our students? That may be what the counselors are for, but for the SROs in question, they are there to mainly uphold the law above all else, even above children. We've seen multiple cases where SROs actually have arrested students for various infractions, some good, some bad. There has been one case where a child of the age of 5 was arrested for carrying a maple leaf because the SRO mistook it for a leaf of marijuana. And you can't train the unfortunate and inherent racism that are in these SROs. SROs have statistically also taken up to arresting black children among everyone else, and specifically targeted them. We have actually voiced statements from students who have been at these schools who talked about their SROs. One such instance in which a around 17-year-old teen in high school spoke about his SRO and said that he felt that this man was judge, jury, and executioner. So just kind of to solidify what I'm trying to talk about. Counselors aren't the problem; it's the SROs. The National Association of SROs actually has a triad method in which a school resource officer should be all of three things: a teacher, a law enforcer, and a pillar of protection. But over 2/3 of the SROs who actually took a study in which they identified with each part of the triad identified with law enforcement the most. Obviously, they are police officers first. As I've said, they will uphold the law above all else. So if they are trained to uphold the law, they will look for any time in which the law is even being slightly threatened, and they will pounce on it, whether that be for good or for better. I would also like to state the various other protections that this bill adds in, such as metal detectors, walls, fencing. This creates, as one of my associates said before, a possible single point of entry, which can be incredibly dangerous, because if a school shooter manages to infiltrate this protected school, all they will need to do is look for that singular point of entry. For if anyone is fleeing, it's like, unfortunately, fish in a barrel. And that's the rest of my time.
Thank you. All right, we have 15 seconds of prep before the final crossfire. Starting now. All right, everybody stand up. Grand crossfire. And that will be for 3 minutes.
Okay, so you had mentioned that SROs in schools right now are police officers first. That is true. So with that being true, they're not properly trained on how to work with children and how to work in schools. This bill being put in place is taking people straight from the police academy, giving them that training on how to work in schools and with children and how to properly handle situations, and then putting them into schools. So if this bill is never put in place, we'll never get that opportunity to kind of fix what's happening in the schools right now.
With the budget so tight, with improving and securing our schools.
You can go ahead, yeah.
It says right here in section 3, it says that this training is for school personnel officers to enable them to recognize and respond more quickly to warning signs. It does not enable them to treat 5-year-olds like human beings.
And even if they did decide to implement this mental training for police officers, then why are we funding this counseling training for police officers when we already have counselors? So why are we?
Because the counselors are severely over workloaded.
But
like I said earlier, it's on average for every school, 1 counselor for 500 students. Trying to keep up with 500 students in a school is nearly impossible.
If we were to add in more counselors, then what would be the point of training police officers for mental health?
It's not on counselors to protect the children. It is on them to protect them mentally, but physically they're not trained and equipped to be outside in that area where shooters are trying to approach. Also, to elaborate on you, let's switch this topic. You said that they would only have 1 point of entry and 1 point of getting out. Don't you think that it would be a better chance of them getting out than that man getting in, that there's more law enforcement there?
It depends on who the actual shooter is. If the
It
shooter
doesn't
is
depend on the shooter if it's a school locked down. If there's fencing and there's people locking in on one door where they can only come in at, there's no possible way of them getting an entry in unless they just decide to bomb the schools.
If the shooter was someone who was if the shooter was a student who was at that school at the time, don't you think that they would know of these particular points of entry, these particular defenses, and then prepare for that?
Yes, you have a point. But if they went there before these acts were implemented, don't you think they still have to learn the new ways and new roles of the school and how entry works and how things may go? If there's metal detectors, if there's metal detectors put in and there's a system of new security, don't you think that they have to adapt to what's been installed and not what was there before?
Yes, and as I mentioned before, the Parkwood shooter did that as well.
Very good. Okay. And then last but certainly not least, we have our 4th and final speaker for affirmative.
I gotta stand. If I seem disrespectful, I'm sorry.
Don't worry, it's fine. It was all a good faith debate.
No, I believe our team has won today due to the fact that we have defined the act and broken down each benefit as a whole. We've managed to counter and prove every opposing point thrown at us wrong. We've provided instances to show how the safety of the students will be assured through the act, through proper training for staff, and the increase of police presence at schools. This act is a great solution and will help the children and teens as a whole. The overall goal was the safety of students, and as proven due to the lack of evidence against this act, this should go into full effect for the safety of the children. We provide an instance of how this act will allow students to have more assistance and safety as well. This act will not only save these schools, but also help to build them up and help our students not only get a better education, but also be in a safe learning environment and better mental space that can motivate them to succeed. With everything that's been going on in the past couple of years and the rise of school shootings, I feel like this act will help the students and also help them move forward and help them get their mental aspect of things together. Yes, there may be an increase of law enforcement, there may be an increase of mental health as well, but as they see the police, there's also more security in knowing, hey, there's somebody I can talk to, there's somebody I can go relieve to, and also there's more security in knowing, yes, I may see more security, I may see more police officers, but I know that means if anybody tries to approach or anybody tries anything, there's a less or more slim chance of anything happening on the inside of the school. With everything being implemented, the upgrades and the help of more police enforcement and lawmaking, there's a less chance of any harm brought to any children or anybody on campus or wherever they may be. So today I feel like we have won due to the fact of us proving these cases, and
Thank you. And our final shot for the negative.
Okay, I'm ready. So what the bill is about is this bad faith and true intentions of this bill is that they are sneaking in critical race theory and lack of reproductive resources, and in order to protect our schools and prevent shootings and escalation, policing them is not the answer. The solution is clear. You can't have shootings without a gun, and no gun equals no shootings. So we should not accommodate terrorists but make them bend to us. We have shown that police do not protect schools, and they struggle to preserve life even if they are at the scene. Like I mentioned the statistics before, that a quarter of police only stop a quarter of shootings, and they actually increase casualties when present at the scene. This bill is a false solution that fails to address the real cause of this violence. And so even if we have like SROs on the scene, they're not obligated by law to protect students. Neither the Constitution nor state law impose a general duty upon police officers or other government officials to protect individual persons from harm, even when they know the harm will occur, said Darren L. Hutchinson, a professor and associate at the University of Florida School of Law. Police can watch someone attack you and refuse to intervene and not violate the Constitution, meaning they might be a deterrent for bullying occurring in broad daylight in front of the now two police officers in schools, but it obviously won't prevent them from bullying happening behind the scenes. So this is about opportunity cost. What are we actually spending our money on? Why are we spending our money on policing and implementing security in ways that are proven not to effectively protect our children in schools, instead of actually implementing a cause like gun control or policies or legislation that will actually improve and secure our schools in a way that is permanent and not just a temporary solution. The temporary solution is just to substitute gun control with counselors and policemen who are not equipped to handle these situations like they've shown in the past. All the past school shootings that we've seen are shootings because police officers do not know how to handle shootings in the right setting. While a significant amount of shootings ended, police are not nearly as efficient as you would want them to be in these types of situations. It took law enforcement 3 minutes on average to arrive at the scene for an active shooting, Yet when law enforcement responds quickly, sometimes within seconds, or if officers are already on the scene when the attack begins, active shooters can still wound and kill many people. 70% of the time when police do not stop them, terrorists fled committing suicide or were subdued by civilians. And in the bill, it says that you can't provide abortions, you can't provide abortion services or advocate for abortion. Schools don't do this in the first place. And I believe that when they sneak these types of things in the bill, like critical race theory and abortion and trying to implement SRO officers when they're not needed, is a way to appeal to far-right agenda and trying to make it to where that protecting children is not what is actually occurring. It's just trying to find a way to spend the money that has not been used from COVID relief funds. And COVID relief funds should not be used to substitute actual gun control. It should be put towards defining actual ways to stop gun violence. Okay, bye.
Thank you. Big round of applause for everyone. I am so proud.
Great job.
Can we get a picture all together? Sure. And then we'll have some feedback and we'll tell you who won. How about that?
Okay.
Deep breath. Do we feel okay?
Yeah. I've never, you can tell I've
It's like
never.
insanely hot in this room.
in the middle. Okay. Even though I don't really take credit for y'all, I'm taking credit. What do y'all do here? What's the claws? Yay! Okay, do you have any individual remarks you want to give them?
Yeah, I don't have anything. I'm not gonna go like individual by individual, but I think y'all did a good job. I mean, I think that the affirmative side won this one, and that's just because I think that there were moments where y'all came up with you had sort of ethical points that you were making, but sometimes they came through without data. You didn't have like a source to back it up necessarily. I mean, like right at the end there, like police don't know how to handle shootings. You sort of put that out there, and I was waiting for examples. And when y'all gave examples of things, there was no. And this is reported by the source. I think there were some that were like, the maple leaf example of someone arrested. I'm sure you have a source for that, but you didn't say it in that moment, and it kind of got lost. And I was like, well, is he just up there giving anecdotes, or does he have some reason why? There was also a passion differential, I think. Y'all were really good at communicating that there are stakes to this. This is a big thing, and if we don't do something about it now, then it's going to continue to be a big problem. And I didn't get as much. There were moments where I got kind of hints of a passionate response, but they kind of fizzled. And I wanted more of this is a big deal. This is an important thing. It kind of plays into what's the alternative. Y'all mentioned the alternative vaguely, gun control, background checks, stuff like that. Well, what's the plan for how committed would y'all be to that? How we have those funds we could use for something else? Tell me, what would that be? But I think, it was y'all were really well spoken. I mean, I thought it was just a really good performance by both sides. So.
Yay! And from a real lawyer, so take that to heart. Really proud of y'all. Please keep debating and taking comm classes and following these important issues because your ideas and your voices are super important. Okay? I'm proud of each of you.
Thank you.
Also, if you were confused on who I was looking at, I was just trying to pretend there was an audience so it helped me focus.
No, that was great. And I don't mean to it all be negative. Y'all did a lot of great stuff. There was good data in what y'all were saying. And y'all were giving good arguments.
Yep, we're good.
How is it?
Every time I see it, my sister-
Yeah, the same. Good job.
Genuinely, like, feel like I'm so proud. Like, I'm so happy with everybody. No disappointments. So, like, have fun. I'm a whole drop hard. Go have fun. Enjoy the weekend. I'm not home.
Nah, I'm over
I am.
Nice job.
Nice job. Three.
Yes, lumbar support for the judge.
I personally enjoy having this to you.
Good
so
word.
You're my favorite.
Was it fun?
It was scary for all of us, but it was fun. I like doing it.
You looked like you got comfortable.
I've always admired my high school debate team. I'm like, there's no way. I was always so shy, like in high school. So it's definitely I'm out of my comfort zone.
But like, look at you. Like you did this though. You looked like real cool out there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I was like, no, I can just make it funny.
Absolutely.
The first time, my first year in law school, I'd never done debate. But my first year in law school, they made us all do a mock trial. And I remember I stood up the first time to talk, and I got the first question from one of the judges, and I just froze because I was so petrified of public speaking. And I just stood there and I was like, I know the answer to this, but like it's not coming to me. And I obviously bombed that, lost, knocked out first round. But you do it enough. I can go argue in front of a judge in front of a room full of people against somebody who has a financial interest against me winning. You just get really comfortable with that.
This is like
Thing to practice.
this is like different. You have to put stuff on the spot.
You do.
Yeah.
Never experienced.
It takes super fast thinking, right?
Yeah, I feel like arguing with people is better more
Practice.
Yeah.
I mean, there are people who are naturally good arguers, but I can't. I need to more practice, like just coming up with stuff on the spot.
Yes, this makes
Like when you said lawyer, I'm like, wait a minute.
Not me.
Yeah.
See, I'm worse at like carrying ideas for such a long time. Like I know it's 5 minutes, but I'm much better when a conversation like flows. But when the conversation is just me,
Yeah.
it's a bit scarier. So like I feel like my first minute or so was a lot stronger than the rest of it
Yeah.
because I actually pulled up kind of script-ish for myself because I knew exactly what I wanted to talk about after hearing the positive
Great.
summary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what everyone I noticed that with everyone was like, you started, you had some sources and you were ready to get out there. You had some arguments, and then once those were out there, you kind of were like, so it's just about practicing practicing outside before the competition or something, and having someone sort of pushing you to like, okay, you made that point.
What else can I
earlier,
throw at the wall?
They're going to come at you with something else, and you're going to have sort of a web of connected ideas.
Right.
And when you come back up, it's going to be really easy to be like, I knew that you were going to say that, or I didn't know you were going to say that, but I do have something related that I can point to. So yeah, it's all about practice. It's all about something you can't do it all. And this can't be the first time you've done it. If you really want to do great at it, you have to have done this in a controlled environment before it.
I think I mentioned it to someone before, but debates like this always feel like a kind of, now that you mention it, kind of conversation, but it's just back and forth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's exactly it.
And I'm in.
This is my first time debating. I was so scared.
You did
You did
good.
good.
You did very
Thank
good.
you. We did a little practice round with you, and then I was like, I don't know what's going on. That was my first debate.
First practice round, like I did, I was like, this is way too much information. Like, I am running out of time. And then I talked so fast, and then I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Because it's
Have
being
more
able,
time.
because it's
Yeah,
being able
so-
to hold, not just hold all that information, but know what to go to next.
Mhm.
because it's
Exactly.
like you just kind of need to get a handle on that. It's
And the redirect, which is like where I think the affirmative team had the slight edge too. Like they were really good at redirecting you guys to places you didn't want to go.
No.
You're like, stop them. You're like, no, you can't do that.
I feel like if I had anything to say to the team, I feel like we focused on counseling a little bit too much.
Yeah, that was my fault. I started so strong with counseling. Like, that's exactly what Daniel told me not to do.
But like, cause that was kind of, we figured this out in multiple practices that we did. Like, our weakest point was kind of on counseling, so I guess we tried to accommodate
You
for
wanted
that.
to yeah, but you ended up. I get that. That makes sense.
Yeah. It's like I got nervous and like, oh, default, and then I like went
And I
to my
and I figured that out, so that's why I was like, okay, let's shift it all the way over there.
Uh-huh.
Let's get as far away from that as possible.
Well, y'all did good. Please don't be overly critical too. It's good to assess and be reflexive, but
Yeah.
seriously, y'all did great. Y'all
I
did
think
good.
y'all did a good job of sort of bringing it back. Y'all had a theme that y'all were coming back to.
Yes.
Of, police don't make the schools safer. They make it more dangerous.
I think-
that came in and that came back, and I saw that through. That was really good.
I think Daniel, or yes, we're teammates. I think Daniel, I think you did. You got like, I think you mentioned it already, but you got really comfortable with it. Like, I could tell in the first minute that you were very nervous, but you went further and further and further into it, and you seemed like you were really confident. Yeah, you did really good.
He's been my teammate the whole
It was
semester.
very
How do you-
clear
I forget my own name
What
sometimes.
you were doing, where you started to have a monkey. I love that, you're accommodating
good.
terrorists thing.
Okay.
That was
Yeah.
like, I could
Good.
tell
You're a
y'all
good
had,
speaker.
y'all had sort of workshopped that
Yeah.
kind, I guess. But you mention it, and it was like, oh, it's gonna get spicy. And then kind of get into it, like, don't be
Helping my
afraid
husband.
to be passionate about the
said
whether you actually bursting
I
through.
dragged
That's the
him
thing
in
you have to
today
learn.
help out,
whether it's
so I have to
or
do
not.
this again. And I was
You
like, I don't
can't
want
be
to have to
afraid
type
like,
twice for it.
jump in.
That's what I took away from what you said. You said being passionate about what you're talking about. You can say a really good argument and sound very
Yeah,
what happens after
and that's
this?
hard because you're trying to do two things. You're
feel
trying to
proud?
be very logical
I do feel
and
especially
clear and not sound like you're like too emotionally
because I came
invested,
from Port earlier, that's why
like you're
I
being
look like this.
That's right.
hysterical about something.
For one of my classes,
But
you have to go like
You have to balance that against like,
What
well, this
classes have you
does
had?
matter. Like this is important, and I care about it. And so it's just about stating those
What
logical
department is
points
that taught in?
in a way
Okay, that's right. And
is,
you're
like, cutting to the other side.
Yeah, my minors.
I think
And that's
Gotcha.
that's
Do you wanna
hard
go
to
to
do, too.
I think something
Okay.
we had that I
we
don't
talked,
think like if we had enough
what class
enough
you're
prep time, I
in,
probably
like
would have
you're
brought it up
talk
at the
louder.
time. Well, in the mock debate that we did in recitation, I brought up a source that mentioned that there's like
What year are you
over
again?
like hundreds of thousands of
This is
schools
great that you're
that
doing all
have
this now. A lot of
no
people don't
counselor,
even
no
get to
medical
this
professional,
level of,
nothing like that, but they
observing
have police
staff and
officers.
participating until they're
So,
further along, so.
It's 'cause I came
I think
here with a bunch of
I think the line I said was
college
completely
credits, and my
like
besides
I completely just
prerequisites,
stole it from
Gotcha.
somewhere else,
Yeah.
but it's a good line.
You can take a
Yeah.
job.
Hop right on
That's
in.
okay.
And I was
Yeah.
That's
splits and
hundreds of
like,
thousands
Can I?
of schools
I might
with
as well-
students
I
that are
don't
closer to a pair of
realize
handcuffs
it's in your
than
class,
than any
so,
mental health professional.
I had
Yeah.
my first like.
And that can be
like,
That would be a good, that would have been a good one.
Yeah, it would have been
When I moved on, I was like, what?
if I thought about it.
Process this for a second.
So this
Yeah.
is your first
But no,
semester.
but no,
You're
like
great. Yeah, just keep
uh,
going.
even then, I feel like that may have been my best so far.
I think y'all did great. Yeah.
Because I feel like
See, they're all so hard on themselves. This is like the hardest part about
but-
working with students.
I don't know.
because it's like for me, it's just I don't like complimenting myself because I feel like if I do it, then I just seem like cocky or something.
No, y'all did great. It's my job to be critical, so it's always hard for me to balance that. But y'all did better than I would have done it, probably. I'll tell you that.
I appreciate it. What's your name?
Scott.
I don't know if I'll do it.
Scott.
Scott.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice to meet
Nice to meet you too.
It
Thank you
starts
for
at
the
12:30
feedback.
next
you. Yeah.
Oh, this one doesn't say shaded. It says shaded.
It says Shaden. You're not just Shaden anymore.
That's good. I've been upgraded.
Bye,
Have a
guys.
good day.
Go celebrate, have a drink, do whatever. It's legal.
I'm old enough to do that.
Right. Legality.
Have a lemonade.
That's right.
All right, how do I stop these? I hope this has been recording the whole time. Real
Don't
talk.
know.
I don't know. It says recording.
Okay.
Okay, so if
The
I,
button on the top.
it's flashing. It's got to be. Stop.